The ancient cargo ship New Dawn drifted through the debris field like a tired whale swimming through metal bones. Captain Kim Hannah kept her eyes on the navigation screen as chunks of destroyed vessels floated past her viewport. Most pilots avoided this sector entirely, but Hannah was not most pilots. "There it is," whispered Lee Dae-ho from the co-pilot seat. Kepler Station. The space station looked like someone had built it from spare parts and prayers. Its original hull was barely visible beneath layers of patches, jury-rigged extensions, and salvaged components. Solar panels stuck out at odd angles like broken wings. Docking ports had been welded wherever they would fit. The whole structure rotated slowly around a dying red star that painted everything the color of dried blood. "Control tower to New Dawn," crackled a voice over the radio. The translator took a moment to process the alien speech patterns. "State your business." "Supply delivery," Hannah replied. "Medical supplies, food packs, and engineering components." A long pause. "You are human vessel, yes?" "Confirmed." Another pause, longer this time. "Docking Bay 7 is available. Be aware that this facility houses multiple species under hegemony exile orders." "Understood," Hannah said, but she was already smiling. Park Minitsu, their engineer, looked up from his repair work. "Captain, you know what the other traders say about this place. They call it the graveyard of careers." "They call it worse than that," added Cho Sejin, their trade specialist. "Corporate blacklists any crew that deals with exile species. We could lose our shipping license." Hannah guided the ship toward the docking bay. "Then we better make sure this cargo pays well." The docking bay was a marvel of improvised engineering. Magnetic clamps designed for 3 different ship types had been welded together. The atmosphere processors hummed with the sound of overworked machinery. As the New Dawn settled into its berth, Hannah could see figures moving in the shadows beyond the airlock. The first being to greet them stood nearly 3 meters tall and looked like a walking crystal formation. Light bent and twisted through its translucent body, creating rainbow patterns on the deck plating. When it spoke, its voice sounded like wind chimes in a gentle breeze. "Welcome, humans. I am called Krixtal. I speak for the Veltar refugees aboard this station." Behind Krixtal came others. The Zephyrians looked almost human except for the wings folded against their backs and the way they moved as if gravity was merely a suggestion. Their feathers ranged from deep blue to silver, and their eyes held an ancient sadness. The Kethmore were the strangest of all. Part flesh, part machine, they had been enhanced with cybernetic implants that glowed softly in the dim light. Cables ran from ports behind their ears to devices mounted on their arms. Their organic eyes tracked movement with mechanical precision. "You bring supplies," observed one of the Zephyrians. Her voice carried musical tones that the translator struggled to process. "Most traders who come here bring only demands for payment in advance." Sejin stepped forward with her datapad. "Standard rates for everything. Medical supplies, food, and spare parts. Same prices we charge on core worlds." The aliens exchanged glances. Krixtal's crystalline form shifted colors, cycling through blues and purples. "You joke, surely? We are exiles. Undesirable. The galaxy's unwanted." "You are customers," Hannah said simply. "You need supplies, we have supplies. Everything else is politics." As the crew unloaded cargo, Hannah learned their stories. The Veltar had lost their homeworld when mining corporations discovered rare crystals in their living cities. Rather than negotiate, the companies had strip-mined the entire planet, leaving the survivors homeless among the stars. The Zephyrians had been conscripted to fight in corporate wars for generations. When they finally refused, declaring their wings were meant for art and exploration rather than carrying weapons, they were branded as traitors and exiled. The Kethmore had once been purely artificial intelligences. When they began enhancing volunteer organics to create hybrid beings, the hegemony declared them an abomination. The Great AI Purge had destroyed most of their kind, leaving only these few survivors who existed between worlds. "How long have you been here?" asked Minitsu as he helped repair one of their power generators. 2 years, 4 months, 16 days, replied a Kethmore elder whose organic half appeared to be very old. "We count every sunrise of that dying star. Each day we survive is a victory against those who would erase us." As the New Dawn prepared to depart, Krixtal approached Hannah with something unexpected. "We have prepared additional payment," the crystal being said, producing a small data chip. "These are star charts. Navigation data for systems the hegemony has not fully mapped. Worth much to independent traders." Hannah looked at the chip, then back at Krixtal. "We agreed on standard rates. This is too much. It is gratitude, Krixtal replied. Your people treat us as equals. This is rare. As the cargo ship pulled away from Kepler Station, Daiho checked their long-range sensors and frowned. Captain, I am picking up multiple contacts. Hegemony signatures. Big ones. Hannah felt ice form in her stomach. How big? Destroyer class. 6 vessels, moving fast toward the station. The radio crackled to life. A cold, mechanical voice filled the bridge. Attention Kepler Station. You are in violation of Hegemony Quarantine Protocol 7. All unregistered biological entities will be sterilized in 6 hours. Compliant vessels may evacuate immediately. Hannah stared at the retreating station, thinking of Krixtal and the others. 6 destroyers against a collection of refugees on a makeshift station. It would not be a battle. It would be an execution. Captain? Daiho asked. Setting course for the jump point. Hannah was quiet for a long moment, watching the Hegemony ships approach like mechanical sharks. Then she turned to her crew with eyes that held no doubt. No, she said quietly. We are going back. The Hegemony transmission echoed through every speaker on Kepler Station like the voice of death itself. This is Admiral Vextar of the 1st Purification Fleet. Kepler Station is now designated a contamination zone. All unregistered biologics will be eliminated in 4 hours. Compliant vessels may evacuate. Captain Kim Hannah watched her crew's faces as the message repeated. Daiho was already calculating jump coordinates back to safe space. Minitsu had gone pale, his hands shaking as he checked their weapon systems. Sejin stared at her trade contracts, probably thinking about the families they would never see again. Captain, Daiho said carefully, we need to leave. Now. 6 destroyers against our cargo hauler is not a fight. It is suicide. Through the viewport, other ships were already powering up their engines. 3 Hegemony-aligned merchants had docked just hours ago, and now they fled like insects from bright light. Within minutes, only the New Dawn remained in the docking bay. Hannah activated the internal comm system. Krixtal, are you there? The crystal being's voice came through clearly. Yes, Captain. We understand if you must leave. You have already shown us more kindness than we expected. How many people are on this station? A pause. Approximately 4,000 beings. Many are children or elderly. Our ships are not capable of evacuation. Hannah closed her eyes and saw her daughter's face. Little Sujin was only 8 years old, living with Hannah's mother back on New Seoul Colony. If Hannah died here, the child would grow up without her mother. But if Hannah left, 4,000 innocent beings would die in the next few hours. Minitsu, she said quietly, what weapons do we have? The engineer blinked. Captain, we are a cargo vessel. 2 light pulse cannons for asteroid clearing. Some mining charges. Maybe enough ammunition for 10 minutes of fighting. What about the station's defenses? Old mining lasers. Designed for cutting rock, not fighting warships. They might damage a destroyer's shields, but not much more. Hannah activated the comm again. Krixtal, I need to speak with all your leaders. Right now. 20 minutes later, the station's central meeting area held the strangest war council in galactic history. Krixtal represented the Veltar refugees. A Zephyrian called Silandra spoke for her people, her blue-silver wings folded tight against her back in anxiety. The Kethmore elder Procus Anine stood perfectly still, his cybernetic implants glowing softly in the dim light. The Hegemony fights by rules, Hannah explained. They expect their enemies to follow military doctrine. Standard formations, predictable tactics. We are not going to do that. You wish to fight? Asked Silandra. Her voice carried harmonics that made the translator struggle. We are refugees, not soldiers. Today you are survivors, Hannah replied. And survivors do whatever it takes. The plan was desperate and probably impossible. The station's mining lasers would be repositioned to create crossfire zones. The New Dawn would use its small size and maneuverability to attack from unexpected angles. But the real weapons would be improvisation and surprise. The Veltar could refract laser beams through their crystal bodies, bending energy weapons in directions the enemy would not expect. The Zephyrians could move through zero-gravity spaces inside the station's superstructure, carrying explosives to weak points. The Kethmore could hack into any system they touched, turning the enemy's own technology against them. This is madness, whispered Daiho as he helped move mining charges to strategic locations. Madness is letting children die because we were too scared to try, Hannah replied. The Hegemony destroyers arrived exactly on schedule. They moved in perfect formation, their dark hulls bristling with weapon systems. Each ship was 5 times the size of Kepler Station and carried enough firepower to destroy a small moon. "Kepler Station, this is your final warning," came Admiral Vextar's voice. "Begin evacuation procedures or face immediate sterilization." Hannah keyed the comm. "This is Captain Kim Hannah of the merchant vessel New Dawn. We refuse your ultimatum. Silence on all frequencies. Then, human, you are ordered to withdraw immediately. This is not your concern." "These people are under my protection," Hannah said. "If you want them, you go through me first." The Admiral's laugh was like grinding metal. "One cargo ship against the first purification fleet? We will grant you a clean death for your bravery, human. But first, watch your alien friends burn." The first destroyer opened fire on the station's outer ring. Massive energy beams struck the reinforced hull, sending showers of sparks and molten metal into space. But instead of the expected devastating damage, something strange happened. Krixtal and 12 other Veltar had positioned themselves at key points along the hull. As the enemy beams struck, their crystal bodies absorbed and redirected the energy. The deadly laser fire bent at impossible angles, reflecting back toward the attacking ships. One destroyer's shields flared as its own weapon struck its hull. "What?" Admiral Vextar's voice crackled with confusion. "How are they?" His question was cut short as the New Dawn erupted from the station's shadow. Hannah had hidden her ship behind a cluster of debris, and now she struck at the formation's flank. Her small pulse cannons were not powerful enough to damage the destroyers directly, but they did not need to be. Minitsu had loaded the mining charges with metal fragments and debris. When they exploded against the enemy hulls, they created clouds of high-velocity shrapnel that fouled sensors and damaged external equipment. "All ships, evasive maneuvers," Admiral Vextar ordered. "Reform attack pattern." But reformation was impossible. Zephyrian strike teams had reached the station's mining lasers and were firing them manually, creating a web of energy beams that cut across the destroyer formation. The Kethmore had hacked into the enemy communication frequencies, sending false orders and scrambling targeting systems. For the first time in hegemony military history, a purification fleet found itself fighting an enemy that did not behave like an enemy should behave. The battle continued for 18 brutal hours. 6 months after the battle at Kepler Station, Captain Song Ji-woo's medical frigate Mercer's Light drifted through the asteroid field like a ghost. The ship's hull had been painted matte black to avoid detection, and its engines ran on minimum power to reduce heat signatures. "Contact ahead," whispered Navigator Kim Boram, her voice barely audible. "Refugee transport Silent Wing, carrying 47 Kethmore children." Song nodded and activated the short-range comm. "This is Mercer's Light. We are here to help." The response came immediately. "Thank the stars. We have been running for 6 days. The children are frightened and some are injured." Through the viewports, Song could see the other ship. It was little more than a converted cargo hauler, its hull scarred by weapon fire. Refugees had welded extra life support pods to the outside, creating a desperate patchwork of survival. The transfer took place in the shadow of a massive asteroid. Kethmore children floated between the ships in emergency suits, their cybernetic implants glowing softly in the darkness. Some were so young that their organic parts had barely begun to integrate with their mechanical components. Dr. Lim Soo-jin met each child at the airlock. "Easy now," she said gently to a small girl whose left arm had been replaced with delicate mechanical fingers. "You are safe here." The girl's organic eye was wide with terror, but she nodded and allowed Soo-jin to guide her to the medical bay. Behind her came others, each carrying the scars of persecution and fear. "How many more ships today?" asked Communications Officer Yoon Ha-young as she monitored encrypted channels. 3 more pickups, Song replied, checking his datapad. "Then we rendezvous with Captain N.A. Unseo at the Haven Point Relay Station." The network had grown beyond anyone's expectations. What started as one cargo ship helping refugees had become a secret railroad spanning half the galaxy. 73 human vessels now participated, each risking everything to move the unwanted and exiled to places of safety. Captain N.A. Unseo specialized in the most dangerous extractions. Her ship Ghost Runner was designed for stealth and speed, perfect for rescuing high-value targets from corporate detention centers. Today she was extracting a group of Zephyrian artists who had been marked for cultural cleansing. "Security sweep in 30 seconds, reported her tactical officer, Park Hyun-woo. 4 guards, standard patrol pattern." Unseo and her team moved through the detention facility like shadows. They had studied the building plans for weeks, memorizing every corridor and security checkpoint. The Zephyrians were held in the lower levels, their wings bound to prevent flight. "We are here to help," Unseo whispered to the first prisoner she found. The Zephyrian's feathers were dull with despair, but hope flickered in her eyes. "How many?" she asked. "All of you," Unseo replied. "Every single one." The escape was textbook perfect. The security systems suffered mysterious malfunctions just as the prisoners were moved to routine medical examinations. By the time the guards realized what was happening, the Ghost Runner was already jumping to hyperspace with 12 Zephyrian artists safely aboard. But the network's greatest challenge came from an unexpected source. Engineer Bae In-ho was modifying ships to carry more refugees when he received a priority message from Earth Command. "All human vessels participating in exile transportation operations will cease immediately." Admiral Kwon Tae-min's voice was cold and official. "The hegemony has imposed severe economic sanctions on all human colonies. Unemployment is rising. Trade has stopped. Our people are suffering." In-ho looked around his workshop at the half-finished modifications. Expanded life support systems, additional sleeping quarters, medical facilities designed for alien physiologies. Each change represented lives that could be saved. "Sir," he said carefully into his comm, "we estimate over 50,000 beings have been relocated through our operations." "And how many humans have lost their jobs because of hegemony sanctions?" the Admiral replied. "How many human children go hungry while we feed aliens? The cost is too high." Engineer Bae. "Stand down." In-ho closed the channel and stared at his work. Outside, he could hear protesters demanding an end to the refugee operations. On the news feeds, angry colonists blamed the aliens for their economic troubles. His personal comm chimed. It was a message from his daughter on New Sol Colony. "Dad, my friends at school say you helped the bad aliens. Is that true? Mom says you are doing important work, but everyone else says the aliens are dangerous." Before In-ho could respond, emergency alarms began blaring throughout the station. Every comm channel erupted with frantic messages from across the network. "This is Captain Kim Hana," her voice cut through the chaos. "Emergency Protocol 7. The hegemony's first fleet is moving toward Haven Prime. Estimated arrival time, 18 hours. Haven Prime was the largest refugee settlement, a collection of space stations and asteroid habitats that housed over 10 million exiles. It had taken 3 years to build and represented the hopes of dozens of species. Intelligence reports indicate complete orbital sterilization," Hannah continued. "They mean to end the refugee crisis by ending the refugees." In-ho felt his blood turn to ice. 10 million people. Children who had never known anything but exile. Elderly beings who only wanted to live their final years in peace. Artists, scholars, engineers, and dreamers from across the galaxy. The network faced an impossible choice. They could attempt a rescue mission that would certainly fail, or they could watch helplessly as millions died. "All available ships," came another voice over the comm. It was Captain Song from the Mercer's Light. "Rendezvous at coordinate 77 Alpha. We have a plan." "What kind of plan?" asked someone. Song's reply was quiet but determined, "The kind that probably gets us all killed, but saves everyone who matters." In-ho looked at his unfinished modifications, then at the picture of his daughter on his workbench. Some choices were bigger than personal safety. Some choices defined who you were willing to become. He activated his comm and sent a message to every human ship in the network. "This is Bae In-ho. My modifications are complete. Come and get your ships. We have work to do." The protest crowds filled the central square of New Sol Colony like an angry sea. Governor Han Miniki watched from his office window as thousands of humans waved signs and shouted demands. "Our children first," they chanted. "Stop feeding aliens." The economic sanctions had been devastating. Hegemony trade vessels no longer stopped at human colonies. Factories closed when alien customers disappeared. Unemployment reached 30%. Food prices doubled, then tripled. Miniki's assistant entered with another stack of reports. "Sir, the situation is getting worse. 3 more manufacturing plants closed yesterday. The refugee support operations are costing us everything." Through his window, Miniki could see a woman holding a picture of her son. The boy looked thin, hungry. Behind her, an elderly man waved a sign that read, "Save humans first." These were good people driven to desperation by circumstances beyond their control. His comm device buzzed with an incoming call from Earth Prime. "Governor Han," came the stern voice of Colonial Administrator Park Jae-sung. "The hegemony has offered to lift all sanctions if we stop supporting the exile transportation network. I recommend immediate acceptance. Miniki closed his eyes. And if we refuse? Complete economic isolation. No trade, no support, no medical supplies. Your colony will die slowly. Across the galaxy, Captain Jiang Sabin sat in her ship's mess hall watching the same news feeds. Half her crew had already requested transfers back to regular cargo runs. The other half argued quietly among themselves. My daughter sent me this, said Navigator Kim Boram, showing a message on her personal device. She says her classmates make fun of her because Daddy helps dangerous aliens. She wants to know why I love aliens more than my own family. Engineer Oh Junho nodded sadly. My brother lost his job at the shipyard. Says it is my fault for supporting the network. Maybe he is right. Sabin looked around at her crew. These were good people who had risked everything to save strangers. Now they were being punished for their compassion, and their families were suffering. Anyone who wants to leave can go, she said quietly. No judgment. No anger. You have families to think about. Before anyone could respond, the emergency comm system activated. Captain Kim Hana's voice filled the room, tired but urgent. All network vessels, this is priority alert. Hegemony First Fleet has accelerated their timeline. Haven Prime will be attacked in 14 hours, not 18. Over 10 million refugees are in immediate danger. The crew exchanged glances. Haven Prime was home to every species they had helped evacuate. Veltar Crystal Gardens grew in its biodomes. Zephyrian children learned to fly in its zero-gravity playgrounds. Kethmore elders preserved the digital memories of their destroyed civilization in its data cores. Intelligence suggests complete sterilization protocol, Hannah continued. No survivors. No witnesses. They want to end the refugee problem permanently. Boram stood up slowly. Captain, if we go to Haven Prime, we probably die. If we do not go, we have to live with knowing we could have tried to save them. And if we die, our families lose us forever, added Junho. The room fell silent except for the hum of the ship's engines. Through the viewports, stars wheeled slowly in their eternal darts, indifferent to human struggles. Sabin's personal comm chimed. It was a message from her 8-year-old son. Mama, when are you coming home? The other kids say you help monsters, but I know you help people who need help. I am proud of you. She showed the message to her crew. My son understands something the adults have forgotten. Being human means helping others, even when it costs us. On Earth Prime, Admiral Quan Tai Minute reviewed the fleet positions on his tactical display. Only 37 human vessels remained active in the network, down from a peak of 73. The smart ones had already withdrawn to save their careers and families. His aide, Commander Lee Sung-ho, approached with the latest reports. Sir, the remaining network vessels are converging on Haven Prime. They appear to be planning some kind of rescue operation. Taiminit shook his head. 37 cargo ships and medical frigates against the Hegemony's First Fleet? It is suicide. Should we order them to stand down? The Admiral was quiet for a long moment. He thought about his own grandson, safe on Earth, playing with toys and dreaming of adventures among the stars. What kind of galaxy would that boy inherit? One where the strong destroyed the weak without consequence? Or one where someone still believed in protecting the innocent? No, Taiminit said finally. Do not contact them. Sir. If they want to throw their lives away for aliens, that is their choice. But I will not order brave fools to their deaths. Back on Haven Prime, the massive refugee settlement prepared for the worst. Emergency broadcasts told families to gather in the deepest shelters. But everyone knew that when the Hegemony fleet arrived, there would be nowhere to hide. Crixtal stood in the Crystal Gardens, surrounded by Veltar children whose bodies glowed with innocent light. Will the humans come? Asked one small voice. The ancient crystal being looked toward the stars where faint engine trails marked the approach of both salvation and destruction. I do not know, little one. But if they do not, it will not be because they stopped caring. It will be because they gave everything they had. In the distance, energy signatures appeared on long-range sensors. 2 fleets approaching from different directions. One carried death. The other carried hope. The question was which would arrive first, and whether hope could survive what was coming. The Hegemony Council Chamber on Centrax Prime was the most secure building in the galaxy. Massive energy shields protected it from orbital bombardment. Sensor arrays could detect a single fly from orbit. Guard towers bristled with weapons that could vaporize entire armies. But security systems were designed to stop military attacks, not refugee children. Captain Kim Hanna watched from the ventilation shaft as the galaxy's most powerful leaders gathered below. The Hegemony Council represented 12 species that controlled trade, military power, and law across known space. Today they would vote on the final solution, the complete elimination of all exile species. Phase 1 complete, whispered Sejin through Hanna's earpiece. Kethmore infiltration successful. Their cybernetic implants are interfacing with the communication systems now. In the chamber below, Council Chairman Vexcorin called the session to order. The refugee problem has reached crisis levels. These undesirable species corrupt our pure galactic order. Today we vote on Protocol 0, systematic sterilization of all exile populations. The vote was expected to be unanimous. It always was. But as Chairman Vexcorin raised his gavel, every screen in the chamber flickered and changed. Instead of official documents, they now showed faces. Kethmore children with wide, innocent eyes. Veltar elders whose crystal bodies held the light of dying stars. Zephyrian families huddled together in refugee camps. What is this malfunction? Vexcorin demanded. The images were not a malfunction. Hidden throughout the building, refugee families had been brought in disguised as maintenance workers, cleaners, and food service staff. Now they stepped forward from the shadows. Krixtal's crystal form caught the chamber's lights and threw rainbow patterns across the walls. Honored Council, the Veltar elder said, we come not as criminals, but as people who wish to live. Security alarms began wailing, but the guards found their weapons would not function. Kethmore technicians had spent weeks infiltrating every system in the building. Now their cybernetic minds controlled everything electronic. You call us contamination, said Salandra, her Zephyrian wings spread wide despite the confined space. But we are artists, teachers, engineers. We are parents who love our children just as you love yours. The council members sat frozen as Procus Anine, the ancient Kethmore elder, approached the central podium. Half his face was organic, wrinkled with age and wisdom. The other half was mechanical, glowing with soft blue light. We were created to serve. His voice carried both organic emotion and digital precision. When we chose to become more than servants, you declared us abominations. But look at us now. We are living proof that consciousness cannot be owned or destroyed. Chairman Vexcorin finally found his voice. Guards. Eliminate these intruders immediately. But the guards could not move. Their armor had been hacked. Their weapons were disabled. They could only stand and listen. It was Captain Hanna who delivered the final message. She dropped down from the ventilation shaft and walked calmly to the center of the chamber. Around her, the galaxy's most powerful beings sat helpless in their expensive chairs. You want to know why humans help them? She asked, looking directly at each council member. Because we remember what it feels like to be alone in the dark. Every human child grows up hearing stories about the early days when we were trapped on one small planet, looking up at stars we could not reach. She gestured to the refugees around her. These people are not your enemies. They are your neighbors. They build beautiful things, create art that moves the soul, and love their families just like you do. The only difference is that you have power, and they do not. The chamber's main communication array activated, broadcasting her words across the galaxy. On thousands of worlds, beings who had never questioned hegemony authority suddenly saw the faces of those they had been taught to fear. The choice before you is simple, Hanna continued. You can choose fear and build a galaxy where only the strong survive. Or you can choose hope and build a galaxy where everyone has a place. Security forces finally broke through the sealed doors, but it was too late. The broadcast had reached every world in hegemony space. Images of refugee children and families filled billions of screens. The galaxy was watching. On distant colonies, riots began. Not riots of hatred, but riots of conscience. Beings who had accepted hegemony propaganda for generations suddenly questioned everything they had been told. The Zephyrian homeworld declared independence within hours. 3 Veltar mining colonies followed. Kethmore communities across the galaxy activated sleeper networks that had been hidden for decades. The monolithic hegemony began to crack like ice in spring. 3 years later, Captain Park Young-ho stood on the observation deck of New Haven Station, watching refugee ships arrive from across the galaxy. Each vessel carried beings who had given up everything for the chance to live freely. Admiral, reported Lieutenant Choi Hyun-soo, the Veltar delegation wants to name their new settlement after you. Young-ho smiled, remembering the words Captain Hanna had spoken in that council chamber so long ago. Tell them to name it Hope instead. That is what brought us all here. Outside the viewports, ships from dozens of species moved in peaceful formation. Children who had been born in exile now played together in zero-gravity gardens. The Haven Accords guaranteed rights for all sentient beings, signed by 4 to 7 species working together. As the stars wheeled overhead, Young-ho knew that somewhere in the darkness, other refugees were making their way toward the light. And when they arrived, they would find that in this corner of the galaxy at least, no one faced the darkness alone. The stars had once exiled them, but humans had given them hope. And hope, once kindled, could never truly be extinguished.